Hello, and welcome to this month's webinar. This month, what we're going to be looking at is the whole sort of market research process through the collecting of data, the managing of that data, and then the using of it within different applications so you can get your insights in real time. The webinar is going to be around sort of 45 minutes, including a Q&A session, which you can write comments in below as we broadcast. As with all our webinars, they'll be available for you to view on our YouTube channel at the end to review it, share the links, and there's also the ability to watch any previous webinars there. I'll be mentioning a few of the webinars as we go through today because we're in this broadcast, we'll be trying to pull all those strands together from various different promotions, different webinars and discussions we've had previously, so you can see, as we said, that workflow. So what we're going to be looking at as part of our agenda is collecting data for various different purposes, using Dub Interviewer, Nebu's tool there for going through the different sort of NPS scoring, CSAT, those types of things where you're getting your data from surveys on the main across different modes and pushing that through into the Data Hub along with other multimedia streams, different data streams from social media, CRM sources, different areas like that, looking at how you can then manage that data, manipulate it, and then use that data to gain those insights, finding those gems of hidden meaning within your data set that will really promote and provoke further discussion, further examination of the data that you're collecting. And looking at publishing that data, as we said, through sort of APIs or towards Nebu Reporter itself. So the main components of the Nebu system we'll be looking at is Dub Interviewer for that data collection software. We'll be looking at the Nebu Data Hub as part of the management tool there, and also looking at Nebu Reporter and how both sources can feed into Nebu Reporter. We're going to only look at these from a sort of very high level today. We're going to focus more on sort of how you connect all these pieces together. But if you want to look at more of the details for each of these individual software sets, there are webinars that cover them in more detail and cover them how you can utilize them and how you can get the most out of each of the individual aspects of the software that's there as well. And this is part of a larger suite. There's also a panel management system involved there as well, and a hosted dialer, again, covered in brochures and webinars and available on our website as well. And we will, in this webinar, briefly look at the sort of other data sources that can come in, be fed into the hub, how you can enrich and enhance your data, and look at how we can publish those out, not just to Nebu Reporter, but to third-party tools, looking at generation of APIs as well. So the story of sort of collect, manage, utilize is what we're going to look at, looking at going from that staging of gathering your survey data, moving it into a data hub, enhancing that data in there, manipulating it, making those changes, applying sort of rules that you want on there, and then pushing that data out into Nebu Reporter, using that data so that you can get the insights you want. And this is the sort of the workflow process we'll be looking at. We have previously spoken about agile market research on there as well, and sort of looping back through those. But we'll take a bit of a linear approach today, just for the simplicity of explaining how the process can flow. So when we talk about collect, we really mean about different data sources, the gathering of different survey data, getting it from sort of different modes, the CATI, web, face-to-face, or even data punching in that, and how you can make those surveys look and feel more engaging, respond and react to the different sort of users that are integrating with them, and generally making the best experience for your respondent in the collection of that survey data. We'll look at when we're sort of managing it. As I said, look at the various different ways of gathering different data sets, merging them together, cleaning them, applying different rules on there, dissecting that data perhaps into different subsets that you want to use for various different purposes, perhaps, sampling and areas like that. And then, finally, the utilization, how we use that data, how we gather the information, how we present it, how we visualize it, the types of analysis can be done. So we're going to talk first about sort of collect. I'm going to sort of talk in, as we said, higher levels on here, but just look at some of the types of collection you can use surveying tools for. Looking at the sort of net promoter scores on there, how you can sort of use that information, use the customer satisfaction or feedback surveys, gathering the data from the tools there. Looking at perhaps mystery shopping and product testing, product development. So a full sort of range of capabilities within the survey engine. But each of these data in themselves provides insight. But when you combine that with sort of more of the management tools that we'll look at in a little while, you'll see how that data can be enriched, can be improved, and more information can be gleaned from the sources you're collecting from. So just to have a brief look at some of the demos here, and we'll just jump into a couple of them, show you what they look like. And as we said before, there is a webinar that shows more about creating award-winning surveys there, and you can reference that one. But you can see from the classical sort of market research, doing various different loops, verbatim collection on there as well, sliders and graphs, and making it more sort of responsive, showing different areas to the client so they can see the different sort of questions that's going up and multi-response in there. But even showing perhaps different styles, so we can see various different styles that could be given to the surveys. And perhaps we're looking at an NPS, where you have a simple survey with a scoring system and a couple of verbatim boxes, get that feedback, get more of the qualitative side of the engagement with your respondent, find out what they're talking about, and making sure that these are all, as we said, sort of designed to be reactive and responsive. So if my screen size does reduce down on there, it's going to flip and make it easier for me to answer those questions, still look at it on a different device as we're going through. So the presentation of your survey can be altered and changed. The responsiveness is inbuilt in there, and the different types of surveying capabilities you have without the Nebu interview system. If you add in also the modes there, so the same survey can be used to do your face-to-face data collection as well as on the web, or perhaps switching, doing multimedia surveys, pre-recruiting on the telephone and immediately sending a link to a web survey and completing that online. That's all embedded in that system and enables you to create very engaging, high responsive surveys. And that's really what you want. You want as much sort of data coming in from your data collection capabilities criteria as possible. So when we've looked at sort of collecting the data, and we've gathered our information, gathered all of our source data, our survey data there, and then perhaps we want to sort of use that in some way. We want to be able to manage it. We want to be able to get it into the Nebu Data Hub. And what we need to then do is connect those surveys to the Data Hub. We need to be able to push that information into a sort of Data Hub repository, and that can be multiple surveys in there as well. So what we're going to now have a quick look at is how we actually get that data, how we connect it to the survey to the Data Hub. Now, in Nebu system, obviously we've got our management area there, so the manage frames area. And when we jump into the manage frames area, what we're going to look at is selecting the survey that we've been collecting. So we're going to obviously choose the survey we have. So I'm going to go onto my external services there. We're going to actually link this up to Nebu Data Hub. I'm going to select a project. And I can choose, whichever project it likes on here. So I can just choose a survey we've done here. And perhaps I want to add it to an existing project. So even though this flight demo project, we see we've already got a webinar flight demo survey in there. I can still choose that project and add in a second data source. So we're adding in a second data source, a second survey into my hub. Now, as soon as that's sort of put on to add in, you'll see alphabetical order. It's initializing. That data is going to be start writing into my hub project. So I can have as many different surveys writing to the same hub project, which enables me then to have multiple data sets in there, allows me to start managing and merging and mixing those data sets up and doing, cross survey reporting. We also have the control from here as well, so we can unlink any of these surveys. If I no longer want to feed that data automatically to a data hub project, we just unlink it. That data source stops feeding in. We can then do some of the admin and the tidying up, perhaps in the data set as well. Perhaps you want to keep that data available in the hub because you want to continue reporting on it. But you don't want to sort of start feeding it. You don't want to be taking up data traffic area where it's not needed at all. So you have that capability in there. You'll also notice there's a sort of a progress here, and different surveys are being sort of fed through at different times. They're updating on there as well. So, this one started a few minutes ago, and it's still got a couple more to sort of populate in. And obviously, if we refresh that, the numbers will go up. But it gives you a progress on how much information is being written and updated at the time, how much data is being synced. So you can see where you are, where that information is being fed into your data hub. Which then brings us on to sort of managing the data. We now, we've got our data survey data being fed in. We may want to sort of just start doing different bits and pieces with that data. And what we are going to look at is really sort of the types of things you can do. So looking at some of the examples of what happens in there. Now, a lot of the clients that are sort of using the Nebu Data Hub are using it to clean up their sample files. They have regular suppliers that provide them with sample files to a set format with set coding in there. Perhaps they want to remove some of the the columns that are in there. They want to run a process that recodes some of the codes to make it standard for their own sort of format. And if you are reformatting, recoding things to your own standard, it means that when you're putting that sample data into your surveys, it's going to fit the same data frame. Your survey designer doesn't have to keep thinking about, changing those codes for sort of the male, female, or the age ranges or things like that. That can all be standardized for you, and you can reclassify it using the hub, just running a single script across every sample file that comes in. It means you can automate and set rules on those different processes. We're also going to look at putting deduplication areas in there, so you can make sure that across multiple projects you're not inviting the same person. You can do quite complex deduplication on there. Now, I know this is already embedded into the Dub Interviewer system, and there is some sort of deduplication rules you can apply there based on sort of the individual their telephone numbers. But in the hub, you can expand out that rule setting by using different R scripts, by downloading different R scripts, or even by looking at writing your own conditions in there as well. You can also use it then to derive different subsets, subsamples, perhaps splitting up sort of multiple sample files. You've merged multiple sample files together, then you want to split them up and maybe have them sent to different invite mechanisms to pull people into the survey, or push them into different parts of the same survey and have that data merge back in afterwards. So there's a lot of things you can do to make sure that the sample you're using is optimized in the mode you want it to be. You can, looking at how best to use those samples and which mode to invite people to, which type of survey you want to push those out to as well. So almost using it as a sort of a routing type of rules on where sample goes. And with that, that's feeding those survey projects, because they're putting that sample into the most appropriate sort of surveys that are out there. And this is something we discussed in more detail in the ASC paper. So if you visit the ASC, the Association of Survey Computing, visit their website. This year there was a paper delivered there on exactly this sort of approach and managing data through sort of omni-channel papers there as well. And again, we look in our previous webinars in a lot more detail of what the hub is, how that can be used, how you can get the most out of it for unlocking your potential, for managing the survey data you have, and putting in sort of automation processes to make it easier to work through the system. Now, just some sort of real life examples we're going to touch on here. Just some customers that are already using Nebu Data Hub and what they're using it for, how they're using it. So we have a company, Marcor. They have different data files coming in, and there's an automated import process, and it's used to pull in those sample files, clean them up, remove some of the sort of different columns, different areas in there as well, recode a lot of that sample, and also adding on sort of quarantine rules there as well. How much that sample can be touched before or after an event, how much you can then reapply to that sample point, so that you're not asking the same individual more frequently than necessary, and you're maintaining that balance on having the right people come into the survey, but not overusing sample as well. We have DGS, who were sort of co-contributors to the white paper we talked about. This was a very much file, so sampling on a daily basis are being delivered. Also, breaking up those surveys into the most appropriate way, and looking at adding on and developing additional rules there to fine-tune how that sample is used, how sort of different people are targeted and invited in the most appropriate fashion for them, which has the higher conversion rates that are happening. I've checked your service, who are looking at cleaning their sample in real time, so they're continuously processing the sample that comes in and feeding that into a project, make sure that's ready for use directly with the survey that's available to them. And GCC, who are looking at adding in all of the data they're collecting and looking at some of the metadata from the interviewers themselves and auto processing that into different formats, which then feed through APIs the Soho reports, Soho software reports there. So rather than pushing out data into a dashboard for a quick overview there, they're looking at more of the logistical data, more of the data on the interviewers, looking at how those are fed in, and using sort of Soho reporting tools to drill down into a different aspect of information that a lot of the time is gathered. A lot of the time the focus is on the visualization of your survey data, looking at those insights, but insights can come just as easily from analyzing it and sort of viewing how are conducting their surveys, how they're progressing, how they engage, what their conversion rates are. But it's all about having that data inside large data sets, cross-referencing those data sets, merging different data sets together, and being able to enhance and enrich that data that will give you the ability to find those insights, to really drill down and find the benefits within the systems. And part of the trying to find that data, find out what's happened there, is looking at some of the visualizations. So you can look at things like word clouds that can be built up from the different sort of verbatim, the different mentions you've got on there. You can have social media feeds coming in, comparing those with the verbatim you're collecting. Whether you're doing your verbatim, you can then start analyzing it, start looking at how words interact with each other, not just in word clouds, but also in how frequently they're said there, but looking at the types of verbatim, seeing whether the emotion that's in them as well. And then looking at the sentiment analysis, seeing whether people are generally positive or negative about that, co-scoring that alongside perhaps your NPS scoring. So you can see whether it's a double positive or double negative. Is the scoring reflected by the verbatim that's happening there, and see whether you genuinely can say something is a very positive experience with people. So what we're going to do is just quickly jump into the Data Hub itself, launch off in there, and look at a data set. So we've got within sort of the different project we were sending back. So here we've, our new survey, we've just started adding in 22 records already in that survey being populated in. After that, we did that manage frames link. So connecting that data set in there. We've got another data set here, and we've got various different derived data sets. Now, normally there'd be sort of one or two data sets derived from there, depending on what you want to do. But from these data sets, what we're doing, and if we're looking at, producing here a word cloud, we've got the ability to schedule this to happen at any time. So I can put on a scheduler here. I can run this at different times and dates, just, update my word cloud. And I can schedule that as well. So it could run every few moments and just, make sure that HTML output is going to be sort of found there. See, I'm saying where I'm going to put this in and which sort of output fields I'm going to write to. We've got some here then, adding in different removal words, stop words, punctuation. We're going to clean it all up in there as well, so the word cloud looks nice. And then we say here, this is the HTML we're going to create from here. We're going to create a HTML page we can then use, we can then visualize our data in and see how that works out. Now, the coding here may look, to some people, very sort of slightly more difficult than that, but there are a sort of nice little resources tag here, so I can then either, pull in my available R libraries. And so if we're looking at this, these are all of the different sort of R scripts I've already got within my own system. So I can do searches on there, and there was one on there. If I look at it again on here as well, we see right at the bottom, here's my word cloud. So I can look at my word cloud and insert that in. There's a resource there that'll give me the code already. If I want to jump out to GitHub, then I can click on here and go to GitHub and find different example codes there. And there are over 10,000 R scripts in GitHub at the moment, and that's growing all the time. It's a sort of source that's reviewed by its peers, and there's a lot of academia that are writing those. So you get second or third iteration of that coding that has been peer reviewed to the nth degree, and is really trustworthy coding in there as well. But we see we've also got some API documentation you can jump into, and manuals as well to help. So you have resources within the Data Hub to reuse, and then you can imagine if you're setting up a process of cleaning information there as well, you can reapply that just simply by changing the source of the data files. Which data set am I going to get? Am I pulling in for this particular process to work on? And that's why having those derived data sets means you can apply the rules and the cleaning the processes on a smaller set of data. If you don't want to show in your word cloud non-English words, then you can remove those. So you're only then processing for the word cloud a smaller subset. You're making it very easier to do that, to get those up and running and start going through how that happens as well. If we're looking at the details of it, you'll see that we've got sort of the visualizations on here as well, all the different areas we're putting out. So we've got here's my word cloud that's being built on there as well, and to make it easier for us to see where this data came from, we just built a little data set. So I've got here my my flight demo is going in there as well. So I'd need to rerun this to add on the extra survey we put into manage frame, so it would appear on here as well. But for this project, we were taking a Facebook feed, just sort of connecting to Facebook. From there, we're taking 100 records at a time, putting through a cleaning process, and from those going through doing the language detection, and then doing the different types of sentiment analysis, word cloud analysis, emotion analysis on there as well. So creating different outputs from that one source, so you can see the data in different ways. You can interpret that data in different ways as well. So creating very visual stimulation of it, going through different processes, drilling down into the information to get to those those insights that we are searching for. So the thing is that we've got sort of the visualizations there. We've built those up. We're looking at at how we could run that coding across there as well. But how do I get from my sort of management system into actually using them? How do I put that information into Nebu Reporter? How do I share my managed data? And what we're really looking at now is within the hub itself is setting up that ability to be able to push that out, to be able to look at different areas of populating your information. So again, when we jump on into the hub, I've already got one open here as well. So jumping in there, we've got this storage area. So every time we've run the data set to create a widget, to create that output, it puts it in the storage area here. So we see our flight demo word cloud is already in there. Notice this collapsible widget isn't shared at the moment. So if I turn that on, I can then share that with Nebu Reporter. So it's just a click of a button and that is shared. I've now said it's shared with Nebu Reporter, it's there. But if I don't want to share it with Nebu Reporter, perhaps I have a PowerPoint I want to put in there as well. I can always download the page or the image onto my desktop and use that in other third-party systems. Or perhaps I just want to use the HTML link, so I can then copy that link directly to my clipboard, and I can use that either in a separate page there. And if I open that up in a separate page, you see there it is. It's created the image, a nice interactive image on a web page, which I can then embed elsewhere. I don't have to use the Nebu system there, but having it here, it's just a single click, and then it's ready for use in Nebu system. Now, if you didn't want to sort of pass across, HTML files or PNG files or some of that more graphical visualizations, and you just want the raw data, then we can publish that data as well. So from here, we can take the different sort of data sets we have. We can publish this data. If I want it published as SPSS on there as well, I've got the name I can give it, so I can choose whichever name I want. I can choose the data set I have, and then from there, publish that. If I want to send it out as a web service, again, same thing, choosing my data set, looking at the data set, either a derived data set or a full data set that was published to it from my surveys. I can then look at that. And if I publish from here, it's going to create for me a web service there as well. And I can say, specify which format it's in. And then once I've got that, copy that to the clipboard. It's then available. I've now got an API web service that I can use and publish and give to, sort of my clients or feed into third-party reporting systems. So you've got that automated workflow that's always going to update. You've got the managed frames area, feeding your survey data directly into the system. You can have triggered and automated and scheduled programs running within the Nebu Data Hub, and then have these sort of data published or pushed directly into other sources. And it's all automated there. It's all being continuously updated, and running those management processes across them means you're continuously getting the data in the structure and format you want. So looking at now sort of using that, we've got that visualization. We've published it. We've put it there, but we want to be able to use it. We want to be able to get that into a format presentable to our clients. We're looking at our own client now, maybe wanting them to be able to see that information. So using it, just recapping what we'll look at a couple of examples of Nebu Reporter, seeing the information that's being embedded in there as well. And as I've said before, there are previous webinars that go to more detail on Nebu Reporter itself. We'll look at how people are using it. So perhaps just delivering data, giving out the data files in there as well, doing that process and pushing it into the dashboard so it can be used and downloaded from there. delivering some more of the feedback on the content, doing the NPS type scoring, showing the sort of remarks, the verbatim, looking world cloud analysis on what people are saying about different systems in there. So different clients are using Data Hub or looking to use the Data Hub in different ways to be able to make that Data Hub published to Nebu Reporter, so that you can access your data, access the insights, look at the information that's coming there as well. Now, when we're looking at Nebu Reporter, just jumping quickly into an example there as well, we'll see that, and I'll unlock this so we can just follow again the pattern that's in there as well. So, just looking at the data source. So when we set up in managed frames the project, so we entered in a project to be able to feed into the Data Hub. From the Data Hub, we also had this as a project set, so this was coming into there. And now by linking this report with the data source, so our survey data, we can do two things. Firstly, it enables us to add in widgets directly from the survey. So the information collected in the survey, without having to be processed in the hub, is available for viewing, for demonstrating, for showing in our dashboard. And the second thing it does is, because this survey, this is already registered to the Nebu Reporter here, and this survey is locked to a Data Hub survey, it means that when we look at adding in, we add in a widget from the Data Hub, here as well, it goes to that project in the Data Hub and shows me all of the information I have here. So I have my widgets available on the Data Hub as well. I can start choosing those. If I want to look at one and have a preview of it, we see that link that we had when we were looking at the hub and just opening up the URL link. We've got the same link here. I can preview all the information. I can look at how that's going to view. And then when I sort of OK, that's going to embed in. Now, all of these are available and accessible because of the Data Hub. So if I just cancel this, when I'm in my Data Hub on the storage and I want to revoke any of the sharing, and I'll do that. So we've got, just the top three now, a radar, the word cloud, and a dynamic table as sharing on there. When I'm in my reports, adding on my widget, I want to look at the Data Hub widget as well now, add that in. I've only got these three available. They've been revoked, so that information isn't available now. So you can control the share of that data. You can control when that's going to be available in the report, how that information is going to be presented on there. So if we are sort of embedding the different information, looking at what's there, we can see, we've got our sentiment counts in here as well. We've got the Data Hub connection here. So these are all Data Hub connections I've put in there. If I just lock up the system as well, you'll see that it now becomes the interactive. We now get the counts over the top of the systems. We get the counts over the top of my sentiment analysis. I can start doing searches on there as well and seeing where words are done within my sort of Facebook feed, my social media feed in there as well, and seeing again the interaction, the values whenever I hover over the top of them. So it becomes a very fluid application. You're getting the information from the hub pushed, and the information you permit to be seen shown into the system here. You're getting it updated and fed in an easy to view fashion. And it's up to you, how much of this information you put in, how you transfer that data from the hub, how you merge it together and present it to your client. But equally, looking at sort of unlocking it, if we look at these are then sort of widgets directly from the survey, direct information from the survey as well. And we see the different sort of survey information go in there, and we've got different filtering on them, so you can run your own filtering, show perhaps certain quota controls in there as well. And there's more detail about how you can set up your reports, how you can configure your widgets within our webinars, and also available within the tutorials, the manuals that are available through the Dub community area. So what we've done today is gone through the process. We've looked at collecting that information. We've looked at putting it into the data hub and manage the information in the systems there. We've looked at how we can use that information going through. So we've gone step by step through the process. The data collection, how the different survey types, different modes, different areas that you can do that surveying from, and engaging your clients and feeding that data into the data hub. Also collecting other external sources, looking at feeding in social media feeds, perhaps even CRM systems, open source government data, feeding those into the data hub and enriching it, using that data hub to process the data, to run rules across the data, to analyze what's going on there, and then create visualizations of that data. And finally, pushing those visualizations into the Nebu reporting system, into third-party applications using APIs. So having that whole process running, continuously being updated, continuously feeding those insights through all the different stages of the process. Now, we as I said at the beginning, we're looking at this in a very sort of linear approach to it. But when we look at the agile market research we've talked about, looking at the webinars we've produced on agile market research and the papers on there, this is a cyclical process. The whole reason of having that data continuously fed, having insights continuously come to you, is so that you can make those adjustments. You can tweak those different sort of parts of R script and R language you may have in the system there, and make sure that as you continuously analyze the information coming to you, you're making it more efficient, you're optimizing, you're obviously then you're totally maximizing your own profits. So that was our webinar today. As I said, as you're sort of going through extra information in there as well. So if there are any questions, we'll just check those now on the system, and I'll be able to do that. So here we have. Yep, there's a question here. So once I've collected data shared with the hub, how do I perform cleanings and settings and rules? Doesn't mean those rules can be automated. Yes, yeah. So the cleaning rules, those are very much based on sort of our language, our scripts in there, looking at that and how you want to run them. Do you want to run on a scheduled basis? If you're having one data file delivered once a day, then yes, schedule it, run it on a scheduled basis. But if it's being delivered at different times, having that run automated, having the process engaged in there and triggered as an event. And you can string, several different R scripts together, so that once one is completed, it triggers the next one. It moves it along the process and continuously updates as well. As I said, we talked about the omni-channel approach. Seems very complicated. Yes, yeah. Again, it's one of those that you can make as complex as you want, and really it depends on sort of what the target is, how quickly you want to move and engage those. Now, the beauty of having the sort of the hub there and the R scripts means that when you are putting together different surveys, different invitational modes, wanting to break up different sample sets, you can always add on new rules. You can always refine those rules and run it across the next part of sample that's coming in. If you wanted to add on an additional invite mode, you don't have to re-script your whole survey. You don't have to re-script any of your sort of processing of and cleaning of your sample and add on an extra routine to do that. It can just be an additional sort of R script that will break out that sample at a different stage in there. So again, applying the agile research principles of breaking it into smaller steps so that you can make those modifications, make those sort of learning adjustments as you go through the system. So someone's saying, the hub helps both automate and integrate project steps and also provide data visualization. Yes, yeah. And this is sort of one of the beauties of the R language. As I said, it was sort of built up in academia primarily as an alternative statistics package to SPSS. It was built by academics. It has sort of all the code peer reviewed by academics as well, and it's often reviewed and demonstrated as part of thesis and professional learning standards on there as well. So there's a high standard of programming in the R scripts. But part of that sort of being able to conduct the visualization was a need to be able to manipulate the data, to be able to sort of subdivide data, to perform different recoding and classifications on there as well. So a whole range of R scripts have been built up over time to perform different functions, different processing of the data you have in your data set. So being able to find a piece of script which will enable you to not only process the data but visualize it is very much about what R is about. It's about playing with data, about getting the insights out of it. And Nebu have just provided a container to be able to allow you to have your own R scripts in there, rehold them, import other people's R scripts, but also have that on top of a big data database. So feed in multiple data streams, multiple data sources, and store them there for use again. So yeah, are very, very important about having the different languages in there. And when we talk about that sort of R in sort of web papers and webinars as well on how important it is and how it's used and how it can automate the processes. So I'm saying I get real-time updates only if I publish data as a web service. No, that's not necessarily so. As we said, if you're publishing that data that's run and you have it as a scheduled update in R, then you can continuously update the Facebook feeds, the word cloud generation, the sentiment analysis that can be continuously running and updating itself, so you can monitor that on a dashboard and see how that's working as well. So those links, those publications to Nebu Reporter, those can be sort of real-time updates on there, continuous updates on them, or they can, as you said, using an API. Yes, then you do get that real-time feed, so it's pulling in the data as required. So that is pretty much all of the questions that we've got there as well. So it just remains for me to thank everyone for joining us today in the webinar. As I said, as we always are, available, anyone in Nebu to reach out to, ask some questions, give them feedback. If there's anything you want to discuss further, I'm sure that someone will be able to help you. And just get in contact with us. You can use info@nebu.com as a general one, and we're put that towards the appropriate person to discuss things with you. There are resources on our website. There's a resource section there as well, so you can download some of the case studies, the white papers, have a sort of link through to the webinars as well, and view those. And the webinars are available on the YouTube channel. So there's plenty of resources there to share and review any of the areas perhaps in more detail than we've been able to provide to you today. So again, thank you once again for your time, and I hope then you'll join me on the next webinar.